What a difference a couple of days makes. We went from 103, 20% humidity, winds gusting or sustained at 30 to 35 miles an hour and gusting to over 50, to today, which is still hot, 100 degrees, about 95% humidity and no wind. So it's, you know, from one extreme to the other. We had some horrible storms here 2 nights ago. Neighborhood lost a lot of trees. We had some serious downdraft winds, what they call them, and it snapped trees like toothpicks. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we had a couple F-0 tornadoes or something that popped up, but it came through at about 3 in the morning, and I was watching the boat cover. Oh, I was so scared. One of the boat cover supports snapped, and a lot of water built up in it. We got about 3 inches of rain that night. Luckily, wasn't a big deal. I siphoned it off, rebuilt the support, and we're good to go. Last night, same thing, 11 o'clock. Big rainstorm comes through, bunch of wind, a lot of hail. This is summertime. So now it's humid. We're supposed to get some more rain this afternoon, but you know, at least the wind's not blowing 400 miles an hour. It gets kind of ridiculous when you're trying to do work and it's blowing the cover on you. You just, wind's no fun to work in. And when it's 100 degrees, it's more like a blast oven, doesn't really help. So anyway, let me show you what I got done today and what we're gonna do today. You see that the new Mercury stickers came in. Got the McCruiser Bravo 1. These are genuine stickers I got off eBay for 24 bucks. The one complaint I have about them is they did not come with the gimbal sticker, which goes right there. And you may ask, well, Jay, why are you bothering with that? You're not going to touch the gimbal. Well, after much consideration and inspection, I am. I'm actually going to rebuild this thing. I've talked to JR Marine, and he's going to send me a stainless pivot and the kit to rebuild the so we don't have any slack or anything in the steering. And I looked back in here, and I have quite a bit of corrosion and pitting in there that needs to be taken care of and painted. Now, the previous owner replaced the bellows recently, so I'm going to have to destroy the bellows getting this off and just redo it. But the oil fill hose, which is right here, which actually goes up to the reservoir up on inside the engine compartment, that's dry rotted and cracked really bad, so it needs to be replaced. That way water doesn't get into the oil or we leak it all out. And so we're just going to do a complete gimbal service, take it apart completely, sand it up, prime it, and give it a good coat of paint. So after talking to I was going to try to do this with it off once I made the decision, but to get the hinge pins out of here, they're in with like 100 foot-pounds of torque or something ridiculous amount like that, and if there's any type of corrosion in there, it's going to be really, really tough. So I temporary bolted this thing back in the transom to give me something to hold on to when you got your breaker bar going. So I'm going to show you guys how to get that bell housing off properly with the right tools, and then as I rebuild it, I'll show you what I'm doing. We're actually going to take the gimbal ring off and rebuild everything inside of it, and then give it a good coat of the Rust-Oleum. I'm pretty happy with Rust-Oleum so far. We'll see how it sticks, so you know, over the season. The primer is the big problem, is that they don't make zinc dichromate anymore, which is what you really need to make this stuff stick. So everybody, when you're doing this, try to keep as much of the McCruiser paint as you can on there and just scuff it up with a Scotch-Brite pad. And then once you're done with that, then shoot just straight over that or prime over that. Just try not to go down to bare metal as much as you can, because the bare metal is the problem. Nothing sticks to it. But if you can paint over what's existing there, you'll be good to go. So that's what we're going to do with that, is we're just going to rough up the spots as little as possible and prime over it and then paint it. So that way we get a nice, good paint job. This one I'm happy with. We didn't have a lot of bare metal showing except for underneath the McCruiser stickers. We're all right. So, okay, here are some basic tools you're going to need to get this bell housing off. Well, Alphas are different than Bravos, but this will kind of get you in the same ballpark. You're going to need one of these. This is a genuine McCruiser gimbal, or the hinge pin removal tool. Now what that does is this goes, the star side of it actually goes into the hinge pin area right here once we remove the trim cinder indicator. And then the other side is actually a 1/2 inch that you apply to you put into a socket, and it's going to be on a long breaker bar like this. Now I'm not sure how this is going to come apart, if it came apart as easy as my Alpha, but sometimes these things are a major pain in the butt. Sometimes I have to apply heat to them because they have Loctite on the inside of them, red Loctite, and you have to melt it off. So the first thing you need to do is we need to remove these trim cinders, and these are going to be a booger. I'm going to go get my impact drill because it'll hit them really quickly and remove them easily. This is the best investment you can ever make. It's called an impact drill, and what it does is it actually uses a cam that hits the turning mechanism here, so therefore you can put more force onto a screw without stripping it out. You can't. I've used this so many times on drills or screws that are in bad shape, so we're going to see if it'll work here too. You just want to bump it, just like that. And this shows you exactly why you want to take this off from time to time. You don't want to just leave this in the water and never ever service it, because these things will seize up like that. But the impact wrench makes short work of it. It shows you how tight they were in there and how they would have been just absolutely ruined, or yeah, ruined by a standard wrench. Now you see, this is where that guy goes in there. And I don't know when this gimbal was ever replaced. I have a feeling that guy was lying to me about that also. So we're going to get the other side off now. This one was not as bad. Need to make sure and get all the corrosion off of there. Alright, so ideally you should be able to, you want to get all the junk out of there so this thing will seat itself in there really good. Then, oh, look at there, it came loose. Usually it doesn't come off that easily. So, you want to try to avoid using air tools on something like this, because it is aluminum. It's not a good idea. So I'll get my big ratchet now that we've broken it loose and pull it out that way. Alright, let's see if this one can come out the same way. Oh, I forgot about this. Wow. That's right, because when you're loosening it, it's going to want to turn it up. So, forgot what I did the last time. Let's just see if putting a foot here will work. Of course not. Alright. Let me figure this out for a second and I'll come up with a solution. I did not come up with a good idea, but I'm going to try my foot thing in here first. Again, let's see if I can get it to work. Yep, I did. Got it. Now to go get the ratchet. 1/2 inch ratchet. Funny story about this ratchet and this pry bar. These were left to me by my grandfather, which I love dearly. He passed away in 2003. And I grew up learning on these tools. Him and my dad taught me everything I know about as far as just tool work and figuring things out and you know, basic DIY stuff. I have a brand new professional 1/2 inch that broke not a week after I bought it. This thing's probably 60 years old. Does the job perfectly. Not as pretty as those new tools, but sure does the job. So you just, oh, that's tightening it, Jay. park with sweat rolling in your eyes. Woo, man, that sucker is in there. I'm not applying too much force to it. I need that breaker bar more. There we go. It's amazing what a little bit extra leverage gets you. We'll spray a little bit of penetrating oil on there. I'm going to let that sit for about 10 minutes. Alright, let's see if it did the trick. It's amazing when you do it right. Alright, so that one's loosened up a lot. Let me move over on the other side. I got both of them all the way loose. The other side took me a little while. You can see how they come out of here. And the red lock, red stuff. Guys, I don't think this bellows has ever been changed. I really don't. So we're going to do it anyway. Yep, it's still got the red lock stuff in it. Unless they put it back in there, which I seriously doubt it. So those two things there allow this to come out. And we got to get the bellows out first, which means we have to take this little aluminum ring out first. Inside the gimbal, or the bell housing, there's a little ring. Yes, it's supposed to be round. This is the aluminum ring that retains the bellows into the bell housing. I'm replacing this. All I did was just bent it and took it out. You're supposed to have a special tool to take it out if you're replacing or putting it back in. You're reusing it, and then you have to have a special tool to hammer it back in. I've got the tool to hammer it back in, but I don't have it to take it out. I bought a bellows and this thing together. So now it's all loose. Only thing that's holding it in is this thing right here, which is the water inlet and the shift cable. I've soaked this shift cable in a little bit of penetrating oil. We're going to let it sit for a few minutes because I'm going to take that nut off, and that way it all comes out and slides out, so that way we can get this bell housing completely off. These things have little snap inserts, and you're supposed to have a tool to install and remove these things. So I do believe you can just break them out and then put them back in with the snap, or just replace them with new tools. Like I said, I'm replacing everything on this this drive assembly to make sure that we're 100%. Like I said, I don't think this thing has ever been serviced, and we're going to make it right. I kind of feel like Mike Holmes on that show Holmes on Homes or Homes Inspection. You just seem to always run into stuff and find more things as you move along in the project, and you can't just leave them alone. You got to fix them. So that's what I'm doing. Anyway, that's where I am right now. I'm gonna let this stuff sit and loosen it up a little bit later on, and get this hose out of here too, so we can get this bell housing completely off. This is another kind of little specialty tool that you're going to need. This is a flexible screwdriver shaft, and I got this for Christmas years and years ago, and I see guys talking about these all the time, having to go to Snap-on and get them. But you have to get to the worm gear bands that are around the bellows and the shift cable, and you have to actually bend it into place like this. Like I've already got the bellows one out, but the shift cable one is way down there, and I got to bend it really just like that, and it acts like a big universal joint. It loosens up that worm gear. Done. So it now just slides right off like it's supposed to. Now, let's see if I can show this to you. Those are the worm gears. You see how it's kind of hard to show on the camera. See, I just slid forward. Same thing up there, there's your bellows. And you want to try to put them back in the same place, just as long as you can get to them with your extended driver. And basically this should allow us to pull the cable all the way through. We'll see how accurate that is here in a second. But also, you want to go ahead and snip the oil line. It's so tight in here. If you break the little plastic thing that it's attached to, you're going to end up having to replace it, and it's a pain in the rear. So basically you want to make sure that you just snip that, because we're replacing it anyway. It's too corroded. Now that we have this completely loose and we got the shift cable ready to come out, I took out, you see that these little things are in two pieces. These are called tapered inserts, and you just buy new ones basically. I stuck my little tool in there and pried them out, and what they do is they actually go into this little spot right here, and they cause it to grip on to the Bravo housing. So what I've done is I've taken it out, and now we can collapse this in and take the whole bell housing off. So we'll set this down over here. Push the tube in. Just like that. And the bell housing comes off. And I'm glad we took this off, because there's a lot of corrosion on the inside of this that needs to be touched up. So we're not going to take the shift cable completely out, because it won't fit. You actually have to take it off from the bell housing first, from right here. So I need to be able to get my opening in here, and then on the other side take it off. So we'll get that loose, and then we'll send this back up through the bell housing. Now that we got the bellows off, all I did was just basically reach in there and yank on it, and it came off just fine. You can see just how bad the corrosion is. Now, I mean, it's all surface stuff, and it'll clean up nicely. This is why you take it all apart. So there's some flaking in here. So we'll get it cleaned up and get it shot with some new black, make it look all nice. We're gonna replace this hose. Looks like it's never been replaced. Oh, I wanted to show you. This is look how bad that is. That's the gear oil line that goes to the outdrive. I wouldn't be surprised if that was leaking oil in there. So that needs to be replaced. Everything else looks good. The exhaust tube, no big deal, we'll leave it alone. Trim cylinder, or not the trim cylinder, the trim cinders are all fine. We'll have to look off in there. That may need to be replaced. We'll kind of see whenever we get it all. I don't know, maybe it'll clean up okay. We'll get the power washer after it once we get it all off the boat. I still need to get the engine hoist and test fit the engine in there before we pull this back off. And I'm going to do that this weekend. So this is about as far as we can get right now before I take this back off. So I wanted to make sure to get the bell housing off first, make sure that's 100%.